What's going on, internet? We're finding ourselves in quite a tricky spot, aren't we? We are falling apart from the inside, it seems, and we are finding the. Don't forget, the left create the right create the left, and it's really important to understand that everybody has a valid point because that's their point and that's their truth, and everyone should be listened to. That's quite a liberal way of looking at life, isn't it? Everyone should be listened to. Everyone should be allowed to do with their body whatever they want as an adult. But we're finding ourselves now in a situation where we're not allowed to say what we think for fear of either being arrested or for fear of being cancelled or fear of... It's distracting me. It's an important message I'm trying to share. So I consider myself to be objective, unemotional, logical, and fairly intelligent for what it's worth. And I don't say that in a big-headed sense. I'm trying to ascertain the skills that I have in order to make a rational decision. And having a mixed-race kid and having a legal immigrant wife, and having lived abroad and felt a little bit of racism and seen a lot of it, I find myself in a position where I feel comfortable to comment. I've seen a bit of the world, seen a bit of racism, quite a bit of racism. I've seen a bit with the police now. I've seen and had many lefty liberal friends, and I've now seen the way that Tommy Robinson's been treated. Aside from the racism, you have to objectively say that in speaking out about the NDAs and stuff, and then being, put in solitary confinement on his own for so long, it seems that I feel like I've got enough of a grasp on the situation with regards to things that I've just noted to comment. And as I said, having a mixed race kid and having a legal immigrant as a wife, I'm pretty sure I've seen and experienced quite a lot of the different sides of this nuanced, complex, grey area of life. The right are angry because they're not been listened to, and it's coming from fear because children are getting attacked and the government are covering it up, and they speak out, and then they get labelled, and then they get more labelled, and they get more aggressive, and the flags go up. But the flags are going up as a direct result of what's happening. And what's happening is no one can say anything because you just get nicked or you get cancelled. At the end of the day, having people in my family that consider themselves, I haven't spoken to them for a while, but consider themselves sort of members of the pride community, whatever you call it, LGBTQ, I do feel like I've got quite a good grasp on this because they're really nice and they should be allowed to be whoever they are, as should anyone as an adult be able to choose whatever they want to do with their body and life. And we should all just shut up and respect that. But at the same time, there are things happening in the country that are quite very toxic, and there are people that control us, that control narrative, that control media, that control society, because society is a reflection of media, not media a reflection of society. Once you sort of get your head around that, you can sort of start the ball rolling in understanding that the narratives are all coming from somewhere. The right narrative is coming from the anger of the people. The people try to speak out and then they get shut down. That creates more anger. And then the flags go up. And the left narrative is from the TVs, really, because there's a huge difference between being very proud of who you are and having pride. And I would probably suggest quite strongly that the pride thing has been named so on purpose so as to create divide. And it seems that really the left versus the right is the people who control the states in Europe, which is why England are clamping down, because they I think they probably know that the English economy is the last thing they've got, the UK economy, because they've lost the states with Trump getting in, and the Catholic Church having its Pope changed. And there is a dynamic and control shift happening, and does seem to be the final frontier, which is a bit mad. But if you look at who owns what, and you look at the situations, and you look at, if you can sort of try to zoom out and try and objectively and unemotionally analyse the things that are happening, and try and get it into your thought process that, well, perhaps there is you know how like we always talk about Russia and stuff historically, and how they're propagandaed, and like that side's propagandaed and we're not. Well, actually, there is, I suggest, more than a large possibility that all sides are affected by the propaganda. And then again, if you start trickling that thought through your head, you'll be like, oh, right, okay. And then you start stepping back and opening your eyes and being like, okay, well, what actually is the truth? What's the middle ground? And it seems that, yeah, this is going to get worse before it gets better, but it will get better, because they've effectively lost, and they're just the last stand, it feels like. And I know that it seems through the media that Trump is this really bad guy and all this, and I'm trying to explain how. So if you're coming from the understanding that the far left, not the well-meaning people, because typically they're the ones that find themselves left, centre. Those people are good, well-meaning people, but also because they're good and well-meaning, that also introduces an element of naivety. And then add on the propaganda, and it becomes very, very complex, very, very nuanced, and very, very distressing for everybody. But the problem in the UK is that they're coming over, some of them, and if you think about, obviously the war-torn countries and things like that, and I completely get it, because I have life experience of I married a refugee. So I've seen what it's like to be from a war-torn country, but I've also seen what it's like to be a really respectful immigrant, a really respectful legal immigrant. I've also seen how immigrants can add to society. I've also seen about how immigrants can bring so much joy and happiness. But then on the flip side, I can also now see, with the government covering it up as well, there are immigrants, given the cultural differences from the Islamic extremists coming into a far left, really, culture. That's the clashing. They're coming over here thinking we're the infidels, which they may have a point in some circumstances. Like, don't forget, like, they're coming from a religion that protects women with the burqa, and we then have this side where they have sex on screen, and we've normalised it. And look, if you want to do that with your buddy, that's fine. I'm just suggesting that there may be a more prudent way to protect women and have a happy and harmonious society. It takes it out of me, this stuff. But the truth is that the left create the right, and the right create the left. And the right are angry because they're not being listened to, so they get more aggressive, because they're being riled up by themselves because of the situation that's being poorly handled by the government and the people that control the government. And the left are probably not that understanding that they're being manipulated, and even though they are really good, well-meaning people, there is this objective possibility that they are being misled purposely for ends. If you get through the sort of process as well, that the system is rather one for obedience rather than harmonious, good living, good stuff, good life. Because really, if you think about it, the pride thing, and calling it pride and using pride, which being a sin, causes more divide and more angry. And if you have to think about the stereotypical fascist right, they're very unwelcoming of others. They're very fierce in the points that they make. There's a lot of divide and a lot of split. But if you think about the very, very far left, and there is quite a lot of similarities in the way that they act. They don't ever allow you get labelled as a transphobe or a homosexual. What's it called? Where you don't like homosexuals just for saying well, I don't know, I lost my train of thought. But there is the majority of people in the middle ground that just want to chill, that don't want all this mess, that don't want all this drama, that just want to be left alone. They don't want the prices of everything going up. They don't want to get squeezed. They just want to do what they want to do. They want to go for a nice meal or whatever. Don't get me started on the rat race, but most people are very chilled and welcoming. And the majority of people, and there's extreme peoples on this side and this side. And actually, both of them have got a point. That's the thing I'm trying to get at. Both of them have got a point, but none of them are listening. Because everyone's so like, I'm right, this is right, I won't ever change my opinion. Well, actually, being wrong is an exciting opportunity for growth, as I see it. And there's loads of people that I'm sharing this because I think it's important, because I feel like I'm right, and I feel like I'm right, and I've thought about it a lot, and I feel like I've got my shit together. I feel like I've spent enough money to be confident enough to be able to ascertain the real information, what's going on, and be objective and unemotional about it. And the majority of people, especially on the far sides, and that's a really good point actually, on both sides, the ones that are on the farthest ends, they don't have that. They don't have the unemotional, logical thinking. It's all the chimp thinking. It's the emotional side then gets triggered and it becomes personally triggered because they've got unresolved trauma, and then they fight. So, how do we get out of this? We're going to really have to just let it play out, unfortunately. But then we don't have actually that much control. I think speaking out is important, sharing opinions, being respectful of other people's opinions, and being open-minded, because there's a huge difference between stubbornness and determination. Stubborn is closed-minded and links to pride, and determination is open-minded and links to progress. And I think that we have to just make our own communities better. And I think the important thing that I think I'm trying to get across is to just be more open-minded to the fact, for everything really, and try and be determined, not stubborn. And you know, if everybody gave an inch and nobody took a mile, we'd get really far. But there are people coming over here who are taking a mile because the government are giving them an inch, and then it falls into the people, and then it becomes a mess. But at the end of the day, I think the majority of people will agree that we just want to chill, just want to get on, like, go and do what you want, spend time with your family, do your hobbies, work on a project that you find interesting and enjoyable and fun and makes you money. But I just don't be thinking that we're special and not hit with propaganda. Because if you trace the money back, you follow the money, you'll find out who owns everything, and then you'll kind of this is what I did, and you get a understanding of, okay, well actually, thinking outside of the box for myself, there are things going on here that we aren't privy to. And that's sort of what is actually causing the big wars and the genocides. And actually the people are always getting really pissed off and mad at each other, but it's us that's most important. And we should all just be allowed to live happy. If everyone was respectful and respected, that seems to be the way to move forward. But there are people that take a mile. So I suppose what the conscious choice that I think if everybody made to give an inch and not take a mile, it wouldn't take us very long to get really far. And be respectful and be respected. Like if you're an immigrant, you're coming over and you add to the community, 100%. I know really cool Muslim guys. And I also know that there are gangs that have been covered up. So obviously there are going to be people that are upset. The kids are getting attacked and stuff. So just to be like very steadfast and stubborn in your views, that like left is right, right is right, left is right, or whatever. I think it's important to be more open-minded than that, and to realise that it's way more nuanced than whatever side you pick. And actually we're all just on the same side at the end of the day. Just humans getting about. Is there anything else? I don't think so. Let's just all give an inch and not take a mile. And let's all try and be more open-minded. And let's all try and be more objective and less emotional. And then the respect will come after that. And I think that there's no other way of me putting succinctly the things that I've shared better than that. So I love you and leave you. But we the people can make our situation better by doing what I've suggested. And that's what I live my life by. And in times of need, you have to stand up and be counted, and that's true. But there are also many times where you have to pick your battles. There are also many times where you don't have to be stubborn. There are also many times where you can be open-minded and be allowing and let people be people. But if everyone has to live by clear boundaries, the right are very strong on boundary setting. But if we can implement a little bit of that in a healthy, respectable way, at the same time allowing other people to express themselves and be who they want, without the stubbornness, without the pride, in a way that's conducive to everybody being in harmony, that's how we make progress. But no one really listens to me. At least not yet. So, do with that what you will. But I'm only sharing it because I think that I'm right, and I know that I'm right, and I'm strong in my convictions, and I've thought about all of this a lot. I'm not emotional about it. So, yeah, try and be objective, try and be open-minded, try and be respectful, try and be giving, and then see how far it gets you. Because then karma will start playing in your hands. Oh, it'll get better. My dumbbells there, he's going to work out. It'll get better. Ding ding.